Welcome everybody. Thanks so much for being here. My name is JC Cortez. I'm the Director of Training and Development here at Synergia's Metropolitan Parent Center. As I mentioned, this is being recorded. It will be shared with you. I will share the PowerPoints, no worries. A poll will be activated at the end. I encourage questions at any time. If they are case specific, remember this is a public forum and we are being broadcast on Facebook. So yes, Synergia is a multi-service agency located in Manhattan, in East Harlem specifically, supporting New Yorkers with disabilities and their families across the 5 boroughs for more than 40 years. We offer information and training tailored for parents, including parents whose primary language is not English or who they themselves have special training needs. We help them participate more effectively in their children's education and development and partner with professionals and policymakers from across the city, state, and country to improve outcomes for all children with disabilities. Synergia, which is Spanish for synergy, is one of New York City's 3 federally funded parent centers committed to serving people with disabilities and focus on communities of color and the economically disadvantaged. We're always creating new programs and have a ton of them available. If you feel that you could benefit from them, please contact me or our intake department at any time. But yes, so yes, this is a long presentation. I apologize in advance. But yes, good morning, Ms. Cordero. Good to see you again. This is a long presentation, so if you do have questions, please ask. I will try to be brief, and if I haven't answered it sufficiently to your satisfaction, please feel free to ask it again or in a different way. I want to make sure that you leave here with as many answers as possible. Maybe we don't leave knowing everything, but we leave knowing more than what we came in with. So please keep that in mind. All right, so I'm going to go ahead without further ado and share my screen. And let's get started. All right. So this is a part of what we call the Apple Academy, which is the Academy for Parents Participating in Leadership and Education and promoting leadership and education. It is a 7 to 8 part series that I do with Spanish speaking parents for now. We'll be offering it in English later this fall. But it's a comprehensive series on learning about advocacy and all there is to know about special education. And we hope to have more people participating in that. We're already about to start our 3rd cohort in next month, June. So if you know any Spanish speaking parents that would like to participate, we'll have that in June and again, another one in August. So yes, as I said, I'm the Director of Training and Development here at the Parent Center. And yes, today's topic is special education, knowing your rights. So who is Synergia? I mentioned it in passing earlier, but we are the Metropolitan Parent Center. It's one of the departments here at Synergia. We offer parent trainings related to special education designed to develop and enhance knowledge and advocacy skills of parents. We offer one-on-one bilingual special education assistance, English, Spanish usually, to help parents resolve special education issues. So if you find yourself having a challenge with the Department of Education or your school district here in the 5 boroughs, parent centers are a good source for you to come to for assistance and guidance. We also have, through the City Council, the New York City Council's Autism Initiative, to promote and support training of parents of children with autism. This for us includes workshops as well as a social skills program for young adults in our integrated transition program, as well as an after-school arts program that we do in collaboration with the Guggenheim Museum. Lastly, as I mentioned in my introduction, we are one of the 3 federally funded parent centers here in the city of New York. And we are proud collaborators and partners with our friends and colleagues at Include NYC, as well as Advocates for Children. Reconvene. Thank you, Mr. Louis. Yes, I will talk about reconvene. So yes, today's agenda, we're going to talk about special education, the concept in general, and then we're going to talk about IDEA, which is the Individual with Disabilities Education Act, which is the federal guidance and law that mandates and dictates everything that special education should be, at least the minimum of what it should be, and how that has to appear across the entire country and territories. We'll talk about the 6 principles that guide IDEA, and then we'll talk about the special education process, a little bit on charter schools, a little bit on private schools, and then 504 plans. What is a 504 plan? Because we see it, but is it something I can have? Is it something that I can have and an IEP, or does it one or the other? And then we'll talk about some advocacy tips. So yes. So what is special education? So special education is a collection of services specifically designed to meet the unique needs of a child with a disability. That means that education is individually developed to address that child's specific needs that may result from a disability. It has to be individualized, and we'll talk about what that is later, but every child is unique, and therefore every special education plan or program that's developed has to be individualized for that child too. There's a saying, when you meet one person with autism, you've only met one person with autism. It's not like it affects everybody the same way. Disability and everything really is the same way. It's not a one size fits all, and there's not one panacea to fix that either and cure that. So yeah, it's not even how we should think about. We just need to see what are the individual needs and how can we meet them? How can we best support them? So yes, special education instruction can take place in the classroom, which is where we typically think about it. It can also take place in a home, in a hospital, or an institution, or another setting. And we'll talk about settings here in a bit. But yes, who's entitled to special education? Do I just say, I want my child to go to special education? No, no. A child with any impairment in need of special education or related services as a result of their impairment and has one of the 13 classifications under the IDEA law, that's who has access to and who is entitled to special education. Any student that has an impairment as in need of special education related to the 13 classifications under IDEA has a right to special education. And we'll talk about the 13 classifications here in a bit. Special education in New York City, I just want to give you this snapshot, which is quite alarming and maybe even disturbing. In 2018, the school year, across the United States, approximately 27% of Latinx and 14% of Black school-age students, school age means K through 12, kindergarten through 12th grade, receive special education services. Think about that percentage. In New York State, the percentages grow to 32% and 21% respectively. But then here in New York City, those same percentages for Latinx and Black students is almost double the national rate. In fact, it is double the national rate. You'll see the national rate is 27% for Latinx. It's 49% here in New York City. For our Black students, it's 14% nationwide. Here in New York City, that's 28%. That's quite alarming. And, thinking about intersectionality and then how this works in the pandemic, we haven't been able to get really good statistics and data throughout the pandemic. So it's going to be probably worse is what we're thinking. And then there are the children that have just dropped out of the system entirely. So what that picture actually is going to be something that we're going to be focusing on in the next few years here in New York and across the country, of course. But yes. So what is IDEA? You heard me refer to this in the agenda. And so it's the Individual with Disabilities Education Act. It's a federal law, as I mentioned, that describes special education services for children with disabilities ages 3 until they graduate or age out. Age out means when they turn 21. In the pandemic years, these past 2 pandemic years, there's been an exception to that, age being 21. It was allowed to be 22. We'll see if they do it this year. My guess is that they will, but there's no official word on that. So until it happens, it's still, we're waiting in suspense. But yes, that's what age out means. IDEA ensures that children with disabilities receive a free and appropriate public education. We call it FAPE. And this is a very key concept that's going to guide a lot of what special education is. Especially when it comes to your rights and your child's rights. Because if your child isn't receiving FAPE, a free and appropriate public education, then there's a problem, then there's a conflict, and this is where things can escalate, and this is where tension can arise from. And children who qualify under IDEA are provided services and accommodations individualized to their needs. So we'll talk about what that can look like as well. I do want to say, free and appropriate public education is probably the number one principle that guides all of IDEA. And it provides special education and services at a public expense, at the taxpayer's expense, at appropriate state-approved schools. So you notice that we have the New York City Department of Education that manages everything here in the city of New York. And then we have the state level as well. So the state approves schools that can provide these services. And so, yes, a student with a disability receives the same educational opportunities as a child without a disability. That is one thing that is key to all of this. You should have the same rights and to everything as a non-disabled student. Because yes, you should be able to go on that same field trip. You should be able to go, do what the class is doing, do what the other kids are doing. Disability should not be something that leaves you behind in any way, shape, or form. So yes, schools must also provide students with an education, including specialized instruction and related services that prepares a student for employment, post-secondary education, or independent living. So yes, there's always goals that we're working towards, right? But yes, what is appropriate? Appropriate is such a subjective term, right? And, as parents, we always want what's best for our child. And that's not a bad thing. Absolutely not. We're not saying you shouldn't want the best. Now, the law says it doesn't necessarily have to be the best, but it has to be appropriate. So according to IDEA, some of the necessities that schools are obliged to provide a student with a disability with regards to education is that it's specifically designed to meet the educational needs of that student. It addresses students' academic, functional, and behavioral requirements. It also provides access to the general curriculum, general education curriculum. So everything that's being taught in the gen ed class should be able to be taught to a student that is receiving special education. It's the same curriculum. Unless there is a modification, we'll talk about that too. But yes, and it's provided according to what's set in the student's IEP. An IEP is an individualized education program or plan. So yes, again, here at the bottom, I've included appropriate does not equal best. It's so important to remember this because it can cause some misunderstandings, especially when we're trying to set goals and expectations. It doesn't mean the best, unfortunately. It doesn't mean that. It just means appropriate. So yes. How is FAPE achieved? So FAPE is achieved by providing a child with special services, which may include services for academic needs, right? How can they access the curriculum? Can they read it? Can we help them write? Behavioral needs, how can we support a child in their emotional and behavioral needs? Speech and language services, it could include that if a child's having difficulty speaking, if a child doesn't speak, and instructional modifications. Modifications is different than an accommodation. An accommodation is kind of like, can I give you a calculator on your math test? Can I give you double time? Can I make sure you have a break to eat something after you've had, an hour and a half of working on your test, or a bathroom break, right? Those are accommodations. Modifications is changing the entire exam or the entire instruction model. So that's one thing to understand when it comes to modifications versus accommodations, sorry. And yes, and to make a learning environment more achievable, appropriate, and accessible for a student with a disability. That's what we're doing when we're trying to get FAPE. So the second most guiding principle is LRE. And LRE means least restrictive environment. That means that the student with the disability has the opportunity to be educated with non-disabled peers to the greatest extent possible. We want to mix students. We want them to integrate as much as we can. We don't want to do what was done with special education, even like in this, as far back as the 80s and 70s. I mean, we all, as New Yorkers, we know about Willowbrook, and we've seen that. I mean, that wasn't that long ago that nightmare existed. We don't want to ever go back to anything similar to that, or segregating disabled students from non-disabled students like that again. So LRE, least restrictive environment, says we need to integrate them to the most extent possible. So a student should be provided with supplementary aids and services necessary to achieve educational goals if they're placed in a general education classroom setting. So yes, everything that we can provide for that student to participate in the most closest to the general education classroom setting is what the goal should be with least restrictive environment. In New York City, least restrictive environment includes the general education classroom and also inclusion classrooms, which are ICT classrooms, integrated co-teaching classrooms. So I want to show you here, this is the continuum of New York City education. And we see here at the bottom, this is where the base is. And as we go up, it's going to become more restrictive. So at the bottom, we start with least restrictive, and then at the top is the most restrictive. And you'll notice on the side, diagonally, the blue lines here, those are related services. Related services can be added on to any of these different levels of restriction. Okay, so anything, I mean, you can have a speech therapist and still be in general education classrooms. You can have a speech therapist and be in a special class in a specialized school. So think about that as just related services. But when we're talking about the continuum of special education or education in general, we're thinking about least restrictive environments and settings. So at the bottom, at the very darkest green, we see general education, right? That's where everybody starts. Okay, and that can also include integrated co-teaching services where you have two teachers, one general ed teacher and a special education teacher. You'll also have sets, which are special education teacher support services that can be provided in a general education classroom as well. Then we think, okay, maybe this isn't enough for the student to participate. Maybe they need to have a sets, special education teacher support services in a separate location. Then okay, and maybe if we need more, the child needs more, then we have a special class that can be, a class for students of a specific disability such as autism. Like here in New York City, we have Nest and Horizon classes, right? We have AIMS classes, we have ACEs classes. So we have those classes, we have bilingual special education as well. Then we have special class and specialized schools. So a special class would be a self-contained class, and that might be something you see like 12 to 1 to 1, 12 students, one teacher, one paraprofessional. Then we have 12, 8 to 1 to 1, 8 to 1 to 2, 8 to then we have 6 to 1 to 1, 6 to 4 to 1. So it can change, and those numbers are students to teachers to paraprofessionals. So yes, then we can go up if, like, say any child has broken a leg or something, or they find themselves in the hospital for whatever reason. There's hospital and home instruction, which is temporary. And then we also have the non-public day and residential schools for students that have like severe needs and multiple disabilities. It might be something where the medical needs are so great, as well as the special education needs, the non-physical needs. So that might be the most appropriate, still least restrictive environment for that student. It depends on needs. So that's the continuum of education here in New York City. So principle 3 is evaluation. So this means we have to gather information related to this child and see how that can enable the child to participate in a general curriculum or classroom. It includes a variety of tools and strategies to be used to collect functional and developmental information, including parent information. So your information is very important as well, especially as we're trying to understand the background and the history of this student. How was your pregnancy? How was labor? How was everything between ages 0 and 3? Did were there any evaluations done between 0 to 3 years old or in preschool? All of this time is important just to understand where we are and where that student is, or how the student has gotten to where they are today. So yes, a parent must give an informed consent to evaluations before the evaluation is conducted. Informed consent is important. It's not simply me asking you to sign something for the sake of signing it. Yes, you want to sign it. You can't, nothing can be authorized without your signature, without your permission, your consent. but it needs to be informed. Informed means that you've had the ability to ask questions. Is this the right evaluation to do for my son? Is this the right, why this test and not this other test that I've heard about? I have other parents that have said that this test is actually better. My pediatrician says that this is better. Why are we not doing this? Informed consent is your ability to ask questions and to ask as many questions as you want before they're done. Is this person qualified to do this test? Will this evaluation be done in my child's native language? All of these questions are good questions. There's no such thing as a dumb question. So please, whenever you're trying to do or provide informed consent, make sure you ask those questions because it's in your rights to ask. So when is an evaluation necessary? I get this question a lot. An evaluation is necessary at all times, especially because it determines eligibility. For special education services, an initial evaluation in all areas of concern is required. So if you are concerned about your child not being able to speak at 1 year old, 2 years old, not being able to hear certain things or react in certain ways, that are reaching certain milestones, these are all areas that need to be evaluated. An evaluation will carefully examine a child's abilities, their strengths, their needs, and that'll be done by a team that consists of you, the parents, the teachers, as well as specialists. And also the purpose of the evaluation is to determine whether a child has a disability and if that requires special education instruction and related services. So if you want special education or you want special related services, you still have to go through an evaluation to determine if it's necessary. And you'll find out that as you're going through special education, through a child's academic career, you'll find that at least every 3 years, evaluations will be done to see, monitor progress, regressions, to see if eligibility is there, to see if the student's eligible for more, if the student no longer needs certain things. So evaluations are critical to this entire process. Are there timelines? Absolutely. Absolutely. A school can't do it whenever they feel like it. And so, yes, there are always guidelines built into this. IDEA, the federal law, establishes a 60-day timeline for the parent's consent for evaluation and the determination of eligibility and special needs of the school, of the child. It must be reviewed and developed each year. I need to make a clarification on this slide. I just noticed it is a 60 school day timeline. So school day, so we have calendar days, right? Every day of the week. We have work days, Monday through Friday. We have school days. School days are days the school is open. So I always give this example. If you ask for an evaluation, initial evaluations right before Christmas vacation, those days that the school is open leading up to Christmas vacation will count. However, the days that the school is closed for Christmas vacation will not count. So, you think in your head, oh, 60 days, that's 2 months. Great, we'll be done in 2 months. No. At the earliest, if the school has been open every day, then 5 days, then that is actually going to be about 3 months. Right? Because there are four weeks in a month. So 5 days, that's 20 days. So yes, if the school is open every day, then it's about probably at least a minimum of 3 months, probably 3.5 was more of the reality. So just keep that in mind. It's school days. And yes, it is renewed and developed every year, the IEP. So we'll talk about what the IEP is in greater depth. And reevaluations are always done. Reevaluations may not occur more than once per year unless mutually agreed between you and the school. If something changes, for example, something drastic to happen, there's a change in like home environment, there's a change in family dynamics, if there was something that like different type of treatments that have been implemented and we're noticing different changes that are kind of sudden and drastic, then maybe it was like, maybe we should reevaluate that, and talk to the school and say, what, I have a feeling we should redo another evaluation. We've noticed this happen in the past few months. Maybe we should do that. And if the school agrees, then it's fine, you can do it. It doesn't happen more than once per year usually. But yes, and a parent can request an evaluation at any given point in time. I need to always tell you that. You can request an evaluation at any time. So yes, does it mean it'll happen is a different story, but you can request it. Anything that you request, you're always going to want to give some justification for. So keep that in mind. And if no evaluations occur, if the child is progressing in school fine, the IEP meetings are happening fine, and we're not noticing anything, then new evaluations will happen automatically every 3 years. For what's sometimes referred to as a triennial evaluation, just a big fancy word for every 3 years, unless, again, it's mutually agreed that it can happen sooner. If the school and the parents are always in agreement, then these evaluations can happen sooner and can happen without any challenges. So what is the IEP? I referred to the IEP like 3 times, right? An IEP is the individualized education program. Some people say plan. It's program, plan, same thing, almost semantics. Yes, but it's created by a team that includes the parents. It's a legal agreement between you, the parents, and the school district. It describes the special education services that a student needs, and it also includes the reasons for why we're including this service. It's valid for 1 school year, and it's revised annually or whenever necessary. Whenever necessary, if some sort of change needs to happen sooner than later, then that can be revised. If for some reason you find yourself going to a mediation or an impartial hearing, which we'll talk about later, then those changes are updated into the IEP immediately. So we don't wait until the end of the year. And when it comes involved into placement decisions, settings, like what we were talking about in the continuum a couple of slides ago, parents should always be involved. We would like, your child best, no matter how many degrees anybody on the other side of the table has. Your child best, and like what will work and what won't work for your child. I always give the example of, we're different types of learners. Some of us are visual learners, some of us are audio learners, some of us are tactile learners. We like to touch things, the hands-on approach. So if somebody says, hey, I would like, the teacher says, oh, I want to do this with your student, and I think it's a great program, but that your child's learning style is completely different, then you say, you know what, hey, maybe this isn't the most appropriate place for a way to deliver this curriculum to my student. So just keep that in mind. But yes, I also want to mention something that was asked by Mr. Louis at the beginning of this presentation, which is what does reconvene mean? Reconvene is just a word that's used to reconvene an IEP meeting. So it's reconvening, it's bringing everybody from the IEP team meetings together again. So say, for example, we have a 3-hour IEP team meeting. We're going to talk about everything under the sun, and we don't have enough time. So we're going to have to reconvene. Also, if, for example, something comes up and the parent wants to ask for a meeting, that's also considered a reconvene. When the parent asks for an IEP team meeting that isn't normally scheduled, typically for an IEP team, you'll have one at the beginning of the year and one at the end of the year. And hopefully it'll get to the point where you only have one once a year. But reconvening a meeting is just bringing everybody together again. I see something in the chat. Can I reconvene after a finalized IEP in the same school year? Mr. Louis, yes, absolutely. You can ask for a reconvene at any time. There's no limits on how many times you can ask for a reconvene. One thing that I always try and tell parents is, make sure that you are asking that when you that when you ask for a meeting, that you've tried to exhaust everything through email or through communications before having to have a meeting. Some things you'll find don't require a meeting every time. But if you want a meeting, you can ask for a meeting at any time. So yes, you can. And there's no limit on that. Even if the IEP has been finalized, I always like to think of these IEPs as organic, meaning that they're always subject to change. because a child's needs change. A child's growth is always evolving as well as their needs are. So I always think of these documents as organic. If I see something that my child needs, I'm not going to wait until the end of the year or till next year's meeting. I'm going to say something now. So yes, ask for that meeting now. If you're seeing changes, share with the IEP team via email. Say like, hey, you know what? My name is Mr. Louis, and I know we had this meeting recently where we finalized the IEP for next year, but I've noticed some changes over the summer, and I feel like we should reconvene, or I feel like we can have a talk about something, or share with them, what it is that you've noticed, and do that. Can you request for, there's a question here in the Q&A. Can you request for evaluations to take place at another school? So you can request that. Anything that you request, I just always say if it's coming from you, to make sure you have a justification. It can't simply be just because I want it that way. So just have a justification whenever you're going to ask for something. Because that way maybe somebody that maybe doesn't understand the reasoning can say, oh, that makes perfect sense. Yes, but yes, you can request an evaluation to take place at another school. Sometimes they have to take place at another school because that the child's school doesn't have the space to do it in, or the staff to do it in. So sometimes, it'll happen at like the district offices instead of like the actual individual school. So yes, but yes, you can make that request, certainly, Ms. Barker. Thank you for that question. And you're welcome, Mr. Louis, absolutely, anytime. So yes, so moving on to principle 5 is parent and student, in parentheses, participation. Parent participation is key to this whole process. Why? Because you have to authorize everything. You know all the stories, like the history, the experiences. You also know like the evaluations. You also know like how your child best reacts to everything, how they will react to things typically. You see that what happens, that what doesn't happen at school. So you're a critical part to this entire process. So where is your participation needed? Your participation is going to be needed in the IEP team meetings. Your participation is going to be needed for evaluations. Your participation is going to be needed to determine eligibility for special education services. And your rights as a parent or guardian is to participate in all meetings and to receive reports and documents of their progress, of your child's progress, and in your native language. So, any educational document related to your student has to be in your language as well for your review. I can't ask you as a school to hear let's have the IEP team meeting today. And by the way, here are the results to your child's evaluations, and you can't read them because they're not in your language. That makes no sense at all. If I'm going to ask you to make important decisions today about your child's future, that makes no sense at all. So all educational documents need to be in your native language, and you have that right. And if you want copies, that doesn't mean that you're being charged 25 cents a copy either. You have a right to these reports and documents of your child's progress and in your native language. Also, I put in parentheses students in the title of this slide because students at a certain age, at age 12 to be specific, are invited by law to participate in decisions regarding transition planning and transition services and needs. So we, at 12 years old in the state of New York, we start to think about, in the city of New York, we start to think about the child's needs for transitioning after high school. Obviously a child's going to have a lot of ideas of what they want to be when they grow up, from the ages of 12 to 18 or 12 to 21 even. So, we know that that's going to change, but we also got to start thinking about it. Whether that happens at 17, 18, 19, 20, or 21, we need to start thinking about it so that if it does happen sooner than later, we're prepared. Yes, and also assessments of parents and students. Yeah, so student might need to participate. And I always tell parents, we always talk about teaching students self-advocacy skills because unfortunately we don't live forever. So, like maybe just bring them into the first 5 minutes of a meeting. Hi guys, this is my son. I want you to meet them. I want you to see them. And, you know, hi son, tell them who you are, tell them a little bit about yourself, what you're interested in, if they can. If maybe they don't speak and they communicate through a communication device, that's fine too. We want them to start having those experiences where they can talk about their disability, where they can talk about themselves, and where they can start advocating for themselves and saying, this is what I need. This is what I need to do. A lot of times we underestimate our children, and we need to stop and give them that space and and create that space for them. Mr. Estutillo, good to see you again today. If I ask for an independent evaluation, educational evaluation with justification, at the same time, can I apply for home instruction? Um, my child is a medically fragile child. His specialists agree with me. So yes, you can always ask for an independent education evaluation at any time, with or without justification. With is better, especially if you want the school district to pay for it. So yes, so if you can justify it and get the school district to pay for it, yes, absolutely. If you want to go to a place that does free evaluations or evaluations on a sliding scale, like our colleagues at YAI, some stuff we do here at Synergia, also our colleagues at Child Mind Institute, you're able to do that and get that for free, then you don't even have to give a justification. You can just go get it. And yes, can you do that? You can do that at any time. It doesn't have to be when you're applying for home instruction. It can be if you want it to be, but it doesn't have to be. So yes, you can get that whenever, and you can ask for it. If you're asking the school district to pay for it, you will want to justify it. So yes, and yes, if your child is medically fragile and specialists agree with you, absolutely. Especially if the DOE's evaluations are not suggesting that or not recommending that. So yes, thank you for that question. So yes, so parent and student participation, we're good. So there are certain safeguards. This is the last principle. There are certain safeguards in due process. And I want to explain what that is, because they're here to protect you as much as they are to protect the school in a way as well. And to, most of all, to, you know, ascertain that the student is being supported in every aspect in a properly and timely manner. So we have parent notification. Parent notification is so important. It has to be done in, you know, the parent's native language as well. And parent notification is letting the parent know, you know, hey, we're going to make this change in in the child's setting, learning setting. We're going to make this change to their special education services. The school has to let you know. Same thing. We want it to have an IEP team meeting. Are you available for this date? It's at your convenience, not theirs. So if you're not available for that date, then just say no. That's okay. They have to come up with a different day for you. So yes, parental consent, always going to be built into everything. A parent has to give consent to any changes that are going to happen in the child's special education or related services. It also has to be given for new evaluations. So yes, and that is informed consent. Remember, you have to have the ability to ask as many questions as you want before you put your signature down. As well as parent access to educational records. A parent always has access to educational records at any time. There's no reason you should not have access to those documents, and you should not be being charged for copies. Also, you will always have the opportunity to present a due process complaint. Due process is another way of you being able to challenge decisions and recommendations of the IEP team meeting, and in the end, overall, the school. So if you don't agree with something, or agree with something that's been recommended, agree with something that's been developed, you have the opportunity to present a complaint and request due process, to have it reviewed by somebody else, to have it challenged in a fair way. So yes, and also parent participation in all meetings is always guaranteed. So I always recommend everything that you can do to enhance your participation in a meeting regarding your child's education. You definitely do it. So yes, due process options. So there are different types of ways to challenge decisions made by the school district. That's the mediation option. There's a due process hearing, which we here in New York City, we call the impartial hearing. And then there are some few cases that are called pendency cases. We're going to talk about these at the end of this presentation. I'm not going to talk about them now because I want to get further along in understanding what special education is. These safeguards, though, they are going to ensure that the rights of children with disabilities are protected. They're going to ensure that parents are provided with the information needed to make decisions, good decisions about evaluations and placement. They're also going to ensure that procedures and mechanisms are in place to resolve disagreements between you and the school. There's also the ability to file a complaint directly with the state here in New York and across the United States. Actually, state complaints exist. That option exists across the 50 states and territories. So yes, there are different ways to obtain due process. Also, these safeguards ensure that parents' rights, parental rights to request, inspect, and review all educational records, not only those relevant to the issue, are provided to you in writing. So yes, and copies of any documents are included. The Department of Education has 45 days to complete those requests. Those are calendar days. So a month and a half's time at the most it should take for the DOE to give you a document that you've requested about your child. You can request amendments if you find discrepancies. And I always say this, it's incumbent, meaning that it is your responsibility as a parent to review these documents. Make sure that there are no mistakes. And if you see a mistake, to have it corrected as soon as possible. Because if that doesn't get addressed immediately, then later down the road, if you should find yourself in a situation where you need to challenge something, and then the mistake wasn't noticed earlier, then that can come back and jeopardize the whole challenge. So always look for discrepancies in everything. From Ms. Barker, can parents challenge the result after the evaluation and meeting if what they said was omitted or what they said was misunderstood? So if in an evaluation, if you want to challenge the results of an evaluation, you can request an independent evaluation. That's what I would do. You're not going to be able to, I mean, you can ask for that evaluation to be done again. Typically that doesn't happen, but you can ask for an independent evaluation. And that would be the way to get around that. Now, if you're in a meeting, so there's in my presentation on understanding the IEP, which I'll do next month, there is something where a parent is able to share their concerns and desired goals for their student, for their son or child, daughter. So if that's not included in the IEP as you said it, in the spirit that you said it, in the way that you said it, then yes, you can have it corrected. And yes, you would simply write to the IEP team and say, you know what, before I signed this version of the IEP team, I didn't say this, or I didn't say it like that, or you're not including this information that I also said. So that's your moment to also have that corrected as well. That's a great question. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Ms. Parker. If I choose to reconvene after the finalized IEP, what is the timeline for that? So that's a great question, Mr. Luis. So, you know, there's no guidance into how soon or how late that can happen. But I would typically say between 2 and 3 weeks is what I would recommend if somebody hasn't followed up with you in a week, to follow up with the school and say, you know, hey, I still asked for this IEP team meeting, for a reconvene, and see what they say, if you know, and address the entire team. And if you're not getting answers in like 2 to 3 business days, then I would follow up with that. And, you know, and at that point, if they're not communicating with you, then you can escalate that to, you know, include the principal, right? I have requested this in, you know, 3 times up until today. And, you know, if the principal, and I highly doubt that a principal would not respond to you, but in the case that a principal doesn't, then I would also then start including maybe the superintendent or deputy superintendent of your school district. What happens if I choose to reconvene in July, 3 weeks after? The summers are always, it's not as clear as it is during the school year, but if you choose to reconvene during the summer, it depends on the what you're trying to discuss, you know, who's available because you do know these school professionals do take time off during the summer as well. So it might be harder. So it depends on the issue that you're having. You know, if it requires a school psychologist and the school psychologist isn't available for whatever reason, that might be difficult. If it's, you know, it doesn't require the school psychologist and that school staff is available and they're working in July, that's different. But yeah, it's unfortunately not as crystal clear, black and white, if it happens in the summer because of summer schedules and vacation schedules of everybody in the school. But yes, thank you for that question. So yes, so if you find any discrepancies, just request in writing that they be changed. Notification rights, school district must always provide prior written notification. And that is whenever it proposes or refuses to initiate or change identification, classification of a disability, evaluations. If they don't want to do an evaluation, they'll tell you, they have to tell you. If they say yes, or if they're saying or suggesting that we should do an evaluation, they have to do that as well. Also placement, where we're placing the child. We're gonna place the child in an ICT setting, and starting effective, you know, June 1st, we're gonna place this child in District 75. No, 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 no. They have to give you written notification, prior written notification. It's a very important safeguard. So you have to know about all of these changes. So how do I access special education? You know, I mean, New York City is huge, right? It's the largest city in the United States. It's the largest school district in the United States. If it's public schools, then it'll be through the Department of Education, the New York City Department of Education. And that includes community schools. That has District 75 for students with higher needs. It has District 79 for students that are in alternative schools or programs. District 79 is also for students that want to finish school in that are a non-typical path. So, you know, some students work, some students drop out and come back. So District 79 is a school for those different types of needs and programs. For charter schools and non-public funded schools, so that's another way to say private, it would still be a Department of Education state approved school, or if it's private, non-approved. And that's how you would still access special education. Who it's managed through is different. It might not be managed through that actual school, but it's managed through the entire special education system that services the public schools. So we'll talk more about that in the end of this presentation. It's a little hairy, especially when it comes to private schools, but we'll talk more about it. Don't worry. So due process rights. Again, if I don't agree with the IEP team's recommendations, what can I do? Mediation, impartial hearing, and pendency cases. And we'll talk in greater depth of those towards the end of this presentation. So we've come to like special education and understanding the principles in IDEA. Now we're going to talk about the special education process and what all that includes. That includes identification, it includes referrals, it includes evaluations and eligibility, and the IEP, placement and services, and due process. A lot of this is going to be rinse and repeat from what we've covered. A lot of this is going to be in greater depth though. So if it sounds like I'm repeating myself, maybe I am, but we're going to go in greater depth. So, and if you have any questions, please ask. So who's involved in this process of special education? The IEP team is the team that is developing the IEP for your child at your child's school. And this could also, this is special education ranges from 0 to 20 years old, 21 years old. And that is early intervention for families with a child with a disability or suspected disability between the ages of 0 and 3. Preschool is ages 3 to 5. And then from 5 to 21, it's considered school age. And so this is typically who it is. So there might be some exceptions in different terms in terms of language, if the child is in early intervention or preschool education. So, but in general, the process is still the same. So yes, I just want to make sure that that's clear in case anyone here today has somebody in those younger grade levels. So yes. So it'll be you, the parent, right, or the legal guardian, the child, if appropriate, right? If they're 12 years old, they're going to be a part of the process automatically, and the school-based support team. So who is that? The social worker, the teachers, a general education teacher, a special education teacher, the school psychologist, and also a district representative. A district representative is somebody by the Department of Education, usually the special education department, that will be there to authorize the special education and related services that have been recommended. They have to sign off. Remember, this is a legal document, a legal agreement between you and the school district. So some representative, a legal representative from the school district has to be there. So that's the district representative. What we see often now is that that district representative is also the school psychologist. So you might see somebody in a meeting that's wearing both hats. If that happens, that's nothing to be alarmed about. It's something that just happens more often. And yes, if your child, it also could be somebody from the Committee on Special Education, which is the central office for that manages all of the implementation of IEPs and the system and everything. And that person will also be there if your child's in a non-public or charter school. So in a private or charter school, it'll be a person from the Committee on Special Education or preschool education or early intervention, whatever the case is for you. Identification. So if you have concerns around milestones or you notice that your child is having trouble in school, it's important to understand what the cause is. Well, how is that impacting their ability to learn? You might notice that your child is not developing certain skills at the same rate as other children. Maybe they're struggling in certain areas of school. Maybe math isn't, a weakness already, or maybe they're having difficulty in reading. If you and maybe you suspect a disability, maybe the school suspects a disability. Before receiving special education and related services, an evaluation has to be done, as I mentioned previously. The child, if they have a disability, then they'll be determined eligible for special education. And again, informed consents by parents must be provided before an evaluation is done. Why is it necessary? It has to be, an evaluation is necessary because it has to find the reasons why a child is having difficulty in school and why they're struggling, why they're demonstrating behavior issues or communication issues, language issues. It also helps us understand and collect information to determine the educational needs of the child. And also, it'll help us in guiding us in what is appropriate educational programming for this child. See something in the Q&A, hold on. Is it best practice to request for your child to get reevaluated or request for an independent evaluation instead? Therefore, can you request for an independent evaluation after your child has been reevaluated? It really, I appreciate the question. That question, I mean, it depends on why you want the reevaluation, if you or the independent evaluation. If your child's been evaluated by the school and you've asked for an independent evaluation and you're still not satisfied with the independent evaluation, then we have to figure out, why are we not satisfied with either of these two evaluations? So yes, if your child's being reevaluated, for, let's say, the first time that school year and you're not happy with that, then you could ask for an independent evaluation. Do you agree with it or not? It depends on you. It's your call. Honestly, is it a best practice? I can't say it's a best practice in terms of recommendations, only because, like, there are different reasons to request an independent evaluation. Maybe I'll give you an example I dealt with just yesterday. Maybe the child got their evaluation at the beginning of the year through Zoom, which isn't that effective. Now we're doing in-person evaluation. So that's a good reason to ask for another evaluation, a reevaluation. I know parents that have taken their child in and they're like, my child was having a bad day that day, and that happens. So that might be a reason to also ask for a reevaluation. Hey, can we just do this? Or maybe I can just get an independent evaluation from for free from YI. and and then we can compare notes. So yeah, so I don't know if it's something that you would automatically do, but it's certainly your call. It is your call at the end of the day. So an evaluation is also we want to make sure that an evaluation answers these questions. Oh, hold on. See something in the chat. If two outside evaluations said yes, but the DOE evaluation says no, who wins, the parent or the school? So it's not it's not a matter of winning. It would see 2-1 that there would be reason to implement the majority's decision. However, I have seen cases where the school has been defiant. The school doesn't necessarily have to accept and implement the recommendations of an independent evaluation. And so if there's a disagreement and the school district doesn't want to follow the independent evaluations, then you might find yourself in need of seeking due process, whether that's through an impartial hearing or through a mediation. That's something that you would probably have to explore in these cases. If the school's not following the recommendations that you want, then you're in disagreement with the school district, and we have to escalate it and through the proper channels. It's a great question, Mr. Lee. Yes, Ms. Barker, absolutely. Great questions. No, keep them coming. So yes, an evaluation has to answer these 3 questions. Does the child have a disability that requires provision of special education or related services? And so that has to be the first and foremost question that the evaluation answers. Is this child going to benefit from this? Also, what are the child's specific educational needs? What do we know about the child's education? Not just for answering like, okay, so maybe the child has difficulty communicating through speech, but what else do we have to think about when we're thinking about this disability in terms of education? What else do we need to think about? Like, is this going to impact reading? Is this going to impact writing? Is this going to impact other aspects besides just the simple ability to speak? Excuse me. Yes, and what special education services or related services are appropriate for addressing these needs? What do we have that is what do we have that we provide that can help this student? Here in New York City, we're very blessed, believe it or not, to have a large support for special education services and related services here in New York City, especially. Our support services and special education goes well beyond what you will see even in upstate New York or in other states. And yes, so we have a lot of support here in New York City, amazing support, and some of the best practitioners as well. So yes. The initial evaluation, a child must be evaluated, as we mentioned earlier, in all areas of suspected disability. Parent must give informed consent for all of these services. The school must obtain informed parental consent before they can also be provided. So you're going to give consent when? You're going to give consent for the evaluations and to implement the services. So those are 2 times where you're going to have to give informed consent. And as I mentioned earlier, the school district has 60 calendar days. I need to change that. That is school days. But yes, the parent and the school district can agree to another timeline. Remember this, you guys can agree to another timeline if the family moves into a new district. So if you're moving from Brooklyn to Queens or Queens into the city or Staten Island, whatever the case may be, you have the ability to agree on another timeline if evaluations were initiated in your prior district. IDEA says the school district has 60 days to initiate and complete the evaluation, then implement the IEP process with parental consent. As we discussed earlier, that is school days. I apologize for the typo on this slide. But yes, the school district has 30 days typically to develop and initiate an IEP. And yes, when it comes to requests of any kind, please put them in writing. Put them in writing always. Just make that your standard habit. I know some of us are more phone people than we are email people, but for all requests related to your child in special education or education in general, do it in writing. Make sure that there's a paper trail, or in this or in today's age, even a digital trail through email. Email is so great because it's time stamped. It shows when you sent it. It shows the date. It shows when somebody replied. It's easy to get read receipts on certain programs. So yes, make sure that you're doing everything in writing regarding your child. If you're going to do a phone call, make sure you keep a journal, and make sure, if you have a conversation with somebody at the school, that you document that in your journal. I can't stress that enough. Sometimes there will be the need for a phone call, and that's okay. Or maybe you have a meeting in person, but as soon as you're done with that exchange, that interaction, make sure you put in your journal. On the 13th of May, 2022 at 11:35 a.m., I spoke with JC Cortez, special education trainer and developer, and we had a conversation about my child's use of certain toys as of support, whatever whatever it might be. And we came to the conclusion that this was the best thing to do moving forward. That's all you have to do. Make sure you document it, because if you don't document those meetings, then there's no proof that it happened, and then it's all subject to a person's recollection. So make sure that you're doing your due diligence, your homework, and make sure you're writing it down and keeping a record of those non-written communications. Also, evaluations are a source of information, and sources of information aren't necessarily limited to evaluations. We can get information from aptitude and achievement tests, parental input. You have a lot of information, believe it or not. You have a lot of information. My son doesn't like to get up before 6:30, but at 7 o'clock, they're up automatically. That's information no parent, no person at the school would ever have. You have that. You sit on a very big treasure of information. So don't forget that. Teacher recommendations. Teachers see our kids all day long. Maybe they're seeing something that we don't see, and vice versa. So always remember that. Your doctor's report on your child's physical health. Your child has this pediatrician for the last 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. They're going to know a lot of information too. Social and background, cultural background information. You know what? We are a Hispanic family. We are an intergenerational family. That means my extended family lives with me. Maybe my grandparents live with me. Maybe my aunts and uncles live with me. Maybe we're practicing Catholics. Maybe we're practicing Jews. Maybe we're some other religion. Maybe we have cultural beliefs. There are certain cultures where you don't touch a child's head. You don't touch them. You don't touch them at all. There are certain child, what was it? I don't know if you've seen, I'm a big movie person. I don't know about you, but what was it? My Big Fat Greek Wedding, where they're spitting on it seemed like they were spitting on the child, and it's like, it means good luck. So, maybe there's something like that. If there's something like that for you or your family, share that information with the school so that they understand. Unfortunately, as diverse as New York City is, that doesn't mean we know every culture and every social etiquette when it comes to every specific culture here. But you know what? We're here to learn and grow together and support each other. And if that means you sharing that information with your school or your school's IEP team, do it. Especially if it's going to help your child. Yes, adaptive behaviors, age appropriate behaviors that people need to live independently or to function well in daily life. They're the sources of information, like my child struggles in putting on their socks, but they don't struggle with everything else. Or my child can do everything when it comes to brushing their teeth, except putting the toothpaste on the toothbrush. So these are things that we can think about as well. And also information where all sources, that it just needs to be documented. There always needs to be documentation. Mr. Louis, if a child's behavior outside of school is violent, but is a charm inside school, does that mean there is no hope of getting help from the DOE? Absolutely not. I appreciate that question, especially because behavior is something that's been critically important over the last, especially over the last couple of years with the pandemic. We've seen behaviors or undesired or challenging behaviors increase a lot, which makes sense, right? Because we've been limited to being only indoors so much. And there's only so much the human body can take, right? And that's our experience as adults. We can only imagine what that means for our children. For behavior, violent behavior outside of school. So this is something, I'm glad you bring this question up, Mr. Louis, because there are things that you will see at home that maybe the child isn't doing at school. And so this is something that I always recommend to a parent. If you see something at school, or sorry, if you see something at home, ask the teacher, ask the child's teachers, hey, are you seeing this behavior? Are you seeing this? And if you don't know how to describe it, or you see your child's violent behavior, film it. Take your phone out, take a video, and it's like, do you see this? Does my child do this while they're at school at any time or in any way? Like, maybe they don't get this bad, but do you see anything similar or related? Share that information. And then tell them, look for those behaviors and tics while the child's in school. Does it mean that you won't get help from the DOE? No. Will it be more challenging if the child isn't doing it in school and it's not impacting his learning, their learning, or somebody else's learning around them? It might be more of a challenge, but I don't think you're going to find too much resistance in getting help. So thank you for that question. Yes. So did we finish this slide? Yes. The assessment process, it must include a physical evaluation, a psychoeducational evaluation, a classroom observation of a child, a social history. Social history is like family background. What was your pregnancy like? Did you take prenatal vitamins or not? What other appropriate assessments can be made? It can also include psychological development, speech and language skills, health, hearing or vision test, motor skills, cognitive skills, functional behavior assessments, if a child's having difficulties with behavior, also language tests and bilingual tests to see which language the child's best understanding. Obviously we want the child at some point, if they're going to stay in the system, to learn English. However, maybe they're newly arrived student and they don't speak the language. So what language are we giving all of these evaluations in? If maybe we have to do it in the child's native language so we can actually have a good understanding of where the child actually is. So yes, a few more notes on assessments. A school must notify and describe an evaluation procedure and use a variety of tools to determine if a child has a disability. It has to be more than one type of evaluation. There's not one test that we can do and learn all of this about. We can't just do one test and learn if the child has dyslexia. Like, there are more tests that need to be, more evaluations that have to be done. So many factors can be used to make these decisions. It's not limited to just one. Oh, they did it on this one, they must be this. No, it doesn't work that way. Also, it must be done in the child's native language, as I just said, or mode of communication. Maybe the child doesn't speak, or the child uses ASL. Whatever we can do to communicate with the child, the evaluation or assessment must be done in that language or mode of communication, so that we can have the most accurate information. And it must be conducted by a licensed or certified professional. And you have the right to ask about that. Are they licensed? Are they certified? How long have they been certified? Are they familiar with this type of exam? So yes, parental role. Parent, you have an important role in the evaluation process because you know your child best. You can provide information about your child and your observations. You are the expert on your child. And nobody can take that away from you. Nobody, no matter if they have a PhD, an MD, whatever. No, it doesn't work that way. You have that, and you're the expert on your child. Parents should provide information on cultural and linguistic and traditional family practices that can impact an evaluation. So yes, make sure you always share that information because it helps everybody down the road. Parents are not present when these tests are being given. That depends. Thanks so much for that question, Mr. Arroyo. Does a parent have to be present? There are certain times where a parent's presence is not recommended because the child's not acting. A child acts differently typically anyway, when the parent is around. So some of these tests, they want to get an assessment of how the child is acting independently. So parent present for certain tests, not usually. It just also depends on the age and the needs. There are a lot of, it's a case by case basis, but usually not. Um, but it also depends on the age of the student too, and the needs. Maybe the child's having a bad day and the parent needs to be there, and maybe the professional says, you know what, if they're having a bad day, then let's just not do it at all. Let's just reschedule. So, yes. Classification tips. So I mentioned earlier the 13 classifications under federal law, the IDEA law. So I want to make sure that this is clear before we say anything else about classification. Classification does not equal medical diagnosis. In no way does classification equal medical diagnosis. Say that again. In no way does classification equal medical diagnosis. It does not, just because your child has ADHD, it doesn't mean that they can't have autism or another disability, or that they have a physical disability. And it's like, all right, so I'm going to show you how classification works. But yes, do not assume that the classification process is a scientific process best left to the professionals. Ask questions, challenge assumptions, ask for documentation, ask for data. If somebody's going to classify your child as something, why? What says this? Why are you coming to this conclusion? Ask for evaluations where you think your child is having difficulties, because maybe it helps determine the classification as well. Also, understand that the definition of any proposed classification category, make sure you understand what the definition is. What does it mean to have a classification of autism versus a classification of multiple diagnoses? What does it mean? And make sure that the proposed classification best fits the needs of your child. Classification should accurately describe the student's major challenges. So that's what classification is. Maybe your child has multiple diagnoses, but the classification that's going to go on your child's IEP has to describe your child's major challenges. So in other words, what are the biggest problems my child has in terms of learning? How does which diagnosis impacts my child the most? That will be the classification. So for example, your child has autism, your child has ADHD, your child has a learning disability as well. Which one of those is impacting my child's learning the most? It might not be the ADHD. It might not be the autism. It might be the learning disability. So the learning disability would be the one that would go on the classification. It doesn't mean it can't change either. Nothing is fixed. So, this is also going to be evaluated in those every 3-year evaluations. If there's changes, classifications can change. They're not static. They're not permanent. But it's going to describe what the major challenges are for the student at that moment. And remember, you can challenge areas and where you disagree. So these are the classifications. These are the 13 classifications. You have autism, you have deafness, you have deaf blindness, you have emotional disturbance, which is being renamed currently here in New York State anyway. And then we have hearing impairments, we have learning disabilities, and learning disabilities can be dyslexia, dysgraphia, and there's one more, slips my mind. We have intellectual disabilities. So, not all intellectual disability is autism. There's cerebral palsy, there's Down syndrome, there are traumatic brain injuries. You'll see traumatic brain injuries here, speech or language impairments, other health impairments, orthopedic impairments. You see the disability of multiple disabilities. And then we see visual impairment, which can include blindness. It doesn't necessarily mean that a child is blind, but yes. If the school does a behavior or functional behavior assessment and it shows no issues in the assessment, can the parents still get behavioral support or ABA as an RSA from the, so that is a big question, Mr. Lee. So yes, if a student has a behavior issue and a functional behavioral assessment is done, we'll talk more about this in a minute. If there are no issues in the assessment, can the parent still get behavioral support or applied behavioral analysis um, from the school district? This goes on a case-by-case basis, so it's hard to answer your question. It depends what the behavior is. It depends if it's still happening. For example, if the child like is having difficulties understanding public versus private situations, then there's certainly something that can be discussed. It might not look like ABA. ABA is it's something that's been recently made available to Medicaid parents that have the waiver. So yes, it's hard to answer this question. I'm sorry, Mr. Louis. You could typically get support. And if you're not, if the FBA, the functional behavior assessment isn't showing it, then I would ask for a different kind or a different set, another FBA to be done. And which classifications have the toughest time fighting with the DOE? That data is not something that we even have, unfortunately. I noticed that we have a lot of children where we're seeing the frequency of autism happening more and more. So we're seeing more of those diagnoses. But fighting with the DOE is, I would say it applies to all disabilities. I mean, special education is a challenge, what we have for all students. You'll remember there are about 1 million students in the New York City schools, and about 250, 300,000 of those students have IEPs. So it's a lot, and it's hard to gauge. Also, I heard no provider accepts waiver for ABA. That's changing. The state of New York is trying to make those changes as quickly as possible. There's something in the assembly right now to make this happen. They just made this available. I believe it was in February or March. So those changes are happening as quickly as they can. You know how Congress works, how the legislative system works. Unfortunately, it's not as fast as we want it to, but they are making it easier for ABA to be attainable. So yes. So we'll continue. I know we have 8 minutes scheduled in this presentation, so I want to zip through these. Some of these we've already talked about. How can I get an independent educational evaluation? We've talked about this already. A parent may request an independent evaluation at the public's expense for each district evaluation they disagree with. Again, it says you can request it. It doesn't mean you will get it. An IEE, which is the abbreviation for this, is broadly defined as an evaluation conducted by a qualified examiner who is not employed by the same public agency responsible for the education of the child in question. An IEE may include an evaluation of any skill related to the child's educational needs. A parent can obtain an IEE if the behavior impacts the child's education. And if the school doesn't want to pay for it, then you can request an impartial hearing to show that the evaluation is appropriate. You typically will not get an IEE authorized at a mediation. It does not mean, however, that you won't. It's just difficult. It is difficult at a mediation, typically more appropriate for an impartial hearing, but I have seen exceptions. So again, a lot of this stuff is case by case. Some evaluation tips for parents. Hold on, I see something in the Q&A. Ms. Barker, what if you know that your child requires a specific program and help, but the school denies your request because they think your child does not need it? In those cases, if you feel like your child requires a specific program, then I would, get an independent evaluation that can help support your and justify your request for that specific program. If the school denies your request because they don't think they need it, they also have to give a justification. They can't just say, I don't think so. So anything that has been requested has to be considered. So whenever you sit down in your IEPT meeting and you say, I think my child would benefit from this program, at that point, the school district has to do its due diligence and has to not only list your request or consideration on the IEP, but then if they deny it, they also have to include on the IEP why not. So I would look to see why they're saying that. They can't just say the child doesn't need it. That's not acceptable. So yes, evaluation tips for parents. Request in writing for evaluations. Again, everything should always be requested in writing. Keep a copy of the request. Explain your child's challenges, why an evaluation is needed. Express all of your concerns about your child. Share important information with the IEP team about your child's performance and your concerns. Remember, things change day to day. So if you're seeing something that's getting worse, I would say something as soon as possible. If I'm seeing something that's looking great, I would say something as soon as possible, like, oh, wow, look at this. Give written informed consent for evaluations, know which assessments are being used, inform yourself, do your research. I mean, even if it's Google, it might not be the best information, but it'll give you a better idea. You can always turn to parent centers, Synergia, my colleagues at Advocates for Children or Include NYC. You know, what assessments are out there? What can you tell me about this? Is there any information that you have on these? You know, it's free. Typically services are free through parent centers at least. So do all that before you go and hire a parent advocate or resort to the internet. So yes, and a reminder, you have the right to request an independent educational evaluation at any time if you're in a disagreement with the district's evaluation results. So quick notes about functional behavior assessments. Functional behavior assessment looks at why a child behaves a certain way and what is happening in the child's environment. So we think about what's happening before, what's happening in the behavior, and then what are the consequences, what's happening after. You'll hear it often referred to as the ABCs of behavior. That's all it means. What's happening before, what's happening during, what's happening after. And it's a process where it's observation, where the school psychologist is usually the one making the observations, classroom observations to help identify the behavior. What is the purpose of the behavior? Behavior is another way of communication, how we communicate. You know, you'll hear a lot of people say body language is 80% of human communication. It's not just what we speak, it's how we move. Like we can read people. So, you know, behavior is the same way. What we do is a matter of communication, especially for a child. Maybe a child doesn't know how to identify certain emotions that they're feeling or can identify that they're feeling a certain way and express that. You know, I mean, we're limited by language and a lot of things up into certain ages. So maybe the child doesn't know how to ask for, you know, mommy's attention. Instead, they want to throw their baby food, you know, at mommy and say like, hey, look at me. I want your attention now. It doesn't mean, you know, but we don't know because the child can't tell us yet, right? So yes, so we got to think about what's the purpose of the behavior, what factors keep this behavior going, and how is it interfering with the child's education. Miss Salcedo, my son is diagnosed with autism and recently is hitting his head while in school and at home. What evaluation can you recommend or ask for? Because I have the IEP team meeting on Wednesday. Thank you so much, Ms. Saucedo. Muchísimas gracias por su pregunta. I'm sorry, first of all, to hear that your child is going through this at this time. So I would contact your child's pediatrician or physician. Maybe your child has a neurologist as well, and let them know that this is happening so that you can have your child evaluated and make sure that they're not hurting themselves or making it worse in that sense. With the IEP team, I would tell them as soon as you see them or even before in writing what's going on so that it can be addressed immediately. And make sure that your child is not having these issues in school, and also ask if your child is doing this while at school, and also have a functional behavior assessment done if it's happening in school. If it's not happening in school, you know, then what can be done to support your child while outside of school. And that might be a conversation that you have with the school psychologist, as well as any specialist already working with your child. How would a parent recover for RSA services missed during the pandemic? So compensatory services that are missed during the pandemic, you could request those through a mediation. You can request those through an impartial hearing. Typically, they do not have expiration dates. If they have and they've expired or they were missed for a reason, then you can ask them through challenging through mediation or an impartial hearing. Ms. Barker, I appreciate your dedication towards answering questions on this platform, even though time may not permit. Thank you so much, Ms. Barker. I'm going to try and push through. So yes, so here we have the ABCs. More on the FBA. The FBA, we've reached 12 o'clock. I'm going to keep going. So bear with me. If you want to hang with us, please stay. If not, this is being recorded. You can pick up where it's at after this. So if you have to go, I completely understand, and I apologize for going more. I told you this is a very long, comprehensive presentation. So, but I'm happy to take all your questions. So yes. Mr. Louis, can the missed RSA services due to the pandemic be made up after high school graduation? Yes, they can. In a nutshell, yes, they can. More on the functional behavior assessment. It is required if a student exhibits behavior that's interfering with their own learning or the learning of other students. Also, it provides an analysis that offers causes for the disruptive behavior. And if behavior that is targeted for improvement can be identified, it must be included in what's called a behavior improvement plan. It's a BIP, BIP, which contains strategies to address the concerning behaviors. If it's developed, it must be included as part of the IEP. So we're coming down to the very end of this presentation, which is what I want to talk to you about: due process. How do you challenge things and what does it look like? I could give you a whole hour and a half on just due process, but I'm going to fly right through this, especially seeing we're behind schedule. But yes. Mediation is a voluntary process in which parents of a student with a disability and the school district personnel meet with a neutral person, a mediator, to work out differences in a collaborative way. Remember, the operative phrase here is voluntary process. You and the school district have to be willing to go to mediation. If either one of you don't want to go, you're not obliged. And if that happens, then that means you either have to go to an impartial hearing or you file a state complaint. But yes, and we'll talk about that in a minute. A mediator helps participants listen to each other's views and assist them to reach an agreement. A mediator is not a judge. They're not there to make decisions for anyone. They're not there to make recommendations for anyone. They're not there to make their own recommendations for anyone. They're there to facilitate a conversation and help people reach an agreement. They're there to help identify what both people are saying, what both parties are saying, where both parties are in agreement, where both parties are in disagreement, and why. But they're not there to do anything else. If you don't want to undergo mediation, you can ask for an impartial hearing at any time. That's your right. A promising alternative. Mediation is a promising alternative to the much slower, much more expensive and formal impartial hearing. There is no cost to the parent in a mediation. So yes, and typically you can get a lot of things resolved in a much quicker way through mediation than you would an impartial hearing. An impartial hearing, latest statistics indicate that impartial hearings last 9 to 10 months. That's a whole school year. So that's a long time to be waiting. And there are backed up cases here in the city of New York. So a mediation might be a best way to get something resolved quicker. So yes, what can you resolve in mediation? Identification, classification issues, evaluation issues, recommendations for special education services, disciplinary actions for students with disabilities. You can resolve these in a mediation. Mediation agreements must be in writing. They are legally binding upon both parties. They include specific actions with specific timelines, accountability, and contingency plans. So they're going to say, what happens if this isn't done by a certain date? Then you contact JC Cortez at the school district office, and they'll get involved, and this is what will happen. They will say things like that. The district representative arranges for immediate implementation of whatever agreements are made in an IEP mediation. So any agreements made in a mediation will immediately go into the IEP that same day, that same week. All of that will be updated. All those services have to be implemented immediately. And parents and representatives of school districts are in no way obligated to agree to services or programs that they do not feel are appropriate for the student. You can both disagree at any time. I heard one not get used to I heard one get not used stuffs in mediation for impartial hearing. Is that true? I think I know what you're suggesting here, and I'm actually going to talk about that. So here's, I think, what Mr. Louis is saying. Any discussions that take place during a mediation, and Mr. Louis, if I'm wrong, please tell me. Any discussions that take place during a mediation are confidential and cannot be used as evidence in an impartial hearing or an appeal to the state review office or a civil court proceeding. Anything that's shared in a mediation does not get shared outside of that. So if you find yourself in a mediation and you want to share every detail that you can to justify why you wanted something, and say you still don't agree, you and the school district still don't agree, and then you go to an impartial hearing, anything that you shared in that meeting, in the mediation, cannot be used in the impartial hearing. It also can't be used in a civil court proceeding. There is an oath of confidentiality that everyone takes at the beginning of these meetings. There's also all paper that is used, all things that people use to take notes is destroyed at the end of these meetings. It cannot be used in an impartial hearing or any other proceeding. The one thing that I will tell you that has to be shared, if any revelation of abuse, neglect, or physical harm is discussed in a mediation, it must be shared, because everyone, at least on the school district side, is a mandatory reporter. So that will always happen. If any revelation of abuse is being shared, it must be reported. So that is the only thing that can be shared outside of a mediation. Parties in mediation are, again, required to sign a confidentiality agreement. And now I'm going to talk to you really quickly about an impartial hearing. An impartial hearing, as I said, typically lasts 9 to 10 months here in New York City. It's a recorded, formal, legal, administrative hearing proceeding, and it's held before an impartial hearing officer who acts as a judge to resolve the dispute between parents and the school district. They're an independent decision maker. They are not a Department of Education employee. They decide what is best, what solution is appropriate after hearing the testimony and all the evidences and witnesses from both the parents and the school district. Parents have the option of being represented by a parent or by an attorney or an advocate. So yes, you have that option. It is highly recommended to have that. It doesn't mean that it's required. It is optional. But it is a very legal proceeding. So it is recommended. And you'll find a lot of law firms that work in special education provide this type of assistance at discounted or sliding scales. So yes. Mr. Louis, so if I share a new assessment in mediation, I cannot use that again in an impartial hearing. Well, if you're sharing an assessment, you're going to share it with your IEP team before you even get to a mediation. So that question really wouldn't apply in either situation. You're going to share that assessment with the IEP team before you have an impartial hearing or a mediation, because you're going to make your request based on that. So yes, you would share that with them before you ever get to this step. So it would be shared in both processes if you ever got there. So yes. And how do you request an impartial hearing? Anytime that you disagree with a decision or action by the child's school district related to special education needs is when you'll request this. And that might be when the school district refuses to identify or classify your child or evaluate your child. that when they refuse to provide a service or program, like placement issues, maybe they want to decertify your child from being eligible for special education. When they fail to implement your child's IEP and they're not providing FAPE, remember, free and appropriate public education. Or that might be when you don't see progress. You know, we have this IEP and plan, no progress has been made whatsoever. I'm going to file an impartial hearing because you didn't do anything for an entire school year. And yes, it must be provided in writing to the IEP team. Some other important impartial hearing facts that you need to know. Request must be made within 2 years of when the problem occurred, or 2 years of when you discovered the problem. So yes, that is the rule, the statute of limitations, if you will. Also, hearings are held at a time and location that is reasonably convenient to you, the parent. It is not the school district that decides when these meetings take place. Under New York State education law, the impartial hearing officer must make a decision within 45 calendar days. That's a month and a half after the request for the hearing. And that, unfortunately, as I said, you're like, oh, a month and a half, that sounds great. Why is JC saying 9 to 10 months? Because there's a backlog. So because there's a backlog, all of these decisions are being made 9 to 10 months because of the backlog. They're trying to kick them out as fast as they can, but there is a backlog. So, and the thing is when you go to an impartial hearing, you typically allotted between 2 and 3 hours time to present information. And like I said, you and the district have the right to present as many witnesses and as much evidence as possible. So 2 to 3 hours might not get you through even the first or second witness and all the evidence presented. The district has the burden of proof. The school district has the burden of proof, meaning they have to show that they did provide FAPE. But yes, so it might take 3, 4 proceedings to actually like complete all of the evidence and witness list. So even after that, you know, we have to look and see when the impartial hearing officer has availability, when the impartial hearing office has office space that's available. We also have to make sure that the professionals can attend on that day that are going to testify. We also have to make sure it's a lot. So you can see, you know, like how these things get kicked out 9 months. It's pretty easy. So we also have to think about that. So yes, and then if we have to kick the can down the road, we didn't finish today, then we have to agree to meet in the future. So that is automatically extending this 45-day calendar day requirement. So that's how it happens. A hearing officer's decision is final unless it's appealed by either party, and it must be adhered to by both parents and the DOE. I see a question. Can a child with a disability get leave behind or not promoted, get left behind or not promoted to the next grade? Under what circumstances can a child with a disability get left behind? That's a great question. And that has to deal with progress and also what the promotion requirements are. So as long as your child is making progress according to the IEP and is meeting those goals in the IEP, they should not typically be withheld. However, you do have to talk about that in your IEP team meetings. What are the promotion criteria that my child needs to make? At what point does it become a concern? So you have to make sure that you're clarifying that with your IEP team because there are different needs. You know, I mean, there might be a student where they have they need modifications where the entire curriculum has to be changed, right? Especially for children with higher cognitive needs. So maybe they can't take the Regents exam in its current format. They have to have a modified version of it, a modified version of certain tests. So those things have to be discussed, especially if your child is being alternatively assessed. So I hope that answers your question, or at least gives you a better idea. But yes, you do definitely need to talk about that with your IEP team what are promotion criteria? So we're almost at the end. Thank you for staying with me. We are, yes. So, here we go. Can I appeal? Yes. Impartial hearing decisions can be appealed to the state review officer at the New York State Education Department. They will review the transcript and of the impartial hearing and the evidence presented. There is no additional hearing. You're not going to go to Albany. Nobody's going to get together on Zoom. All that's going to be done is people are going to review the testimony from that day. As I mentioned, it is a legal proceeding, so there is a written log of your testimony, of everyone's testimony presented, and that's the only thing that gets reviewed at the state level. Appeals can also be addressed in an appeal to the Commissioner of Education. An appeal to the Commissioner may not be used to appeal an impartial hearing officer decision. You have to go to the SRO first, and then you can appeal. I mentioned pendency. Pendency is a very slim factor, slim section. Basically, it's called the stay put provision. So like during any due process proceeding, the child remains in the current placement they are to provide stability and consistency to the student. Unless the parent and a guardian or school agree on an alternative placement, pendency is what happens. So let's say the school district wants to change your child from an integrated co-teaching class to District 75 next month. And we really don't understand why. You as a parent have the right to request a pendency, and all of that's saying, my child is going to stay put while we review all of this additional information. It's typically on placements, but I have seen it used in rare exceptions on other things. But yes, and that'll automatically request a hearing or a mediation so that we can hear all of the concerns. So yes, so basically you're just saying not so fast. We're going to stay put pending further review. So yes, you're welcome, Ms. Barker. Thank you. What would make a child not qualify to take foreign language? That a foreign language, it depends if there's availability. It depends if the child would be, if the child would be able to learn in that environment. We want to make sure, you know, that following the continuum, that the child has all the appropriate supports to participate in the education provided in foreign language. So it really depends on a case-by-case basis what supports are available for that class. But yes, so here we are. We're going to talk really quick about charter schools and private schools. The DOE is responsible for developing an IEP with the Committee on Special Education. They are going to ensure that charter schools can provide these services. A charter school may take part in the process of developing an IEP, but the rules do not apply. Remember, charter schools are autonomous, as are private schools, so the system isn't going to necessarily follow the same rules. Once an IEP is developed, the charter school is responsible for carrying out the IEP. So the charter school can provide programs and services directly. They can do that through an outside provider, or by requesting that the CSE, the Committee on Special Education, provide programs and services. An IEP must be designed to meet your child's needs, not based on what a charter school can offer. And this is really important. There are a lot of good charter schools out there. I'm not saying anything bad about charter schools, but charter schools do not offer all of this support, special education support for certain children, for all disabilities. They're not required by law to offer all of them. And you know, we always talk about everything's about money. Everything's about money, and special education is very expensive. So, you know, if a charter school has a group of students, it's easier to provide for a group of students than it is for, you know, a few individual students. So you'll see that some charter schools do not offer certain services. So one thing, if you're considering a charter school, they should be able to explain to you what services and special education they can provide you, and they should be able to do that in writing. I've seen and heard directly, I will not name names, of charter school officials say, "Oh yes, we can do that. We got you. We can take care of your child. It'll be easy. It'll be this." And then, and the parent is happy with that, right? They can do it. I want my child to go to that school. They say they can take it. They say they can do it. Yes, let's keep going. And then all of a sudden they enroll their student, and then all of a sudden the charter school is like, yeah, we can't do that. We don't have the services. But you told me, yeah, we thought we would be able to, but we can't, and they don't have to. So make sure you get it in writing. That's what I'm going to tell you. This is a Spanish translation. Quickly, a 504 plan. What is a 504 plan? Hold on, I see something in the chat. Gracias, JC, por toda su información. Aprender como nuevas ayudarán mejor a mi hijo. Gracias a usted, señora Reyes. She's just saying thank you for all of this and all the learning. Thank you so much, Ms. Reyes. So we're almost at the end, I promise. Like, I know I keep saying that, but we are. What is a 504 plan? A 504 plan before the American with Disabilities Act, federal anti-discrimination civil rights law applied to any schools, public or charter, that takes federal money. So yes, it was discriminatory. There was discrimination against students with disabilities. And the ADA says now any school or any entity that takes federal money cannot discriminate based on disability. So yes, and this covers many areas, but not limited to education, services, and testing, extracurricular activities, physical access, and discipline. So yes, you can always ask for a 504 plan instead of, or in addition to, an IEP by contacting your school's Section 504 coordinator. Every school has a 504 coordinator. 504 plans typically, again, I say typically, that's not only, but typically provides medical supports, physical supports, and focuses on that. So yes, but yes, you can have a 504 plan and an IEP plan. You can have one or the other. They're not mutually exclusive. I've seen students with severe asthma or respiratory issues, and they need a 504 plan in addition to their IEP. So that's just gives you a basic rundown on what a 504 plan is. So some tips here on how you can be a better advocate for your child. Make sure you read every line of your son's IEP, your daughter's IEP. Make sure you read it over and over again. These things are big documents. Don't read them, and maybe read one section, for one night of the week until you get through it. Break it down, make sure you have a full understand what the goals are, understand how they're written, understand if they're following certain formats that they should, understand your child's disability, understand the aspects of their disability and how it affects the learning, how it might affect them and their functioning in the classroom and at home. Get information you need from so that you can learn more about it. You're going to be the best advocate for your child up until a certain age, and hopefully they can advocate for themselves, as they grow older. But in the meantime, they have you, and they're going to depend on you. And the best thing you can do as an advocate is to educate yourself. So yes, ask questions, ask all the questions. Whether it's in these presentations, whether it's at, your child's IEP meeting, if you want to do a follow-up, if you want to ask for a reconvene, if you want to send endless emails, ask the questions. Ask the questions. I can't tell you that enough. Communicate and collaborate effectively and assertively with the school personnel. You have to learn to work with the school personnel. They're not the enemy. Maybe they don't always agree with you. Maybe they don't always provide the support you want. However, they are going to be the people that are supporting your child in your absence. And so remember that, and remember that maybe they just need more information. So provide the information where you think, communicate with them regularly. Don't just communicate whenever there's a problem. We don't, just like what is it? you don't want to be called into the office at work only when there's a problem. You know, I want to get called into the office to be told that I'm doing a good job. And, you know, communicate those things, you know. So yeah, communication goes a long way. Collaborate with each other, try and work together. Hey, did you see this happen with my child recently? I noticed this is happening at home. Will you keep a lookout for that? The teacher might say, hey, can you look at this and do this for me? Make sure that your son is doing this while they're at home doing their homework. And if so, will you tell me how they do? You know, make sure when you guys agree to something that you follow up with it. Follow through is so important. I can't tell you that enough. It establishes trust. It establishes a relationship. It really is going to help you a long way. And yes, keep your records organized, especially if they're in written. You know, email is great. If you can organize it, even better. And if not, you know, you can print them out, get a binder, punch some holes in it, keep it, you know, chronological order, whatever helps you. Everyone that works in their own best organizational ways. So I'm not going to tell you how to do it. But yes, and remember, you are not alone in this. There are other parents around this entire city, country, world that are going through a similar situation. So, you know, there here in the United States, we have parent centers in every state. Here in New York State, we have about 7, believe it or not. We have 3 here in New York City. So yes, Long Island has one, Upstate has one, Buffalo has one, Poughkeepsie, like, yeah, they're everywhere. And it's free, it's vetted by the government, federal government. It's there to be a source of information. We have advocates, special education advocates that do this for free, that do it on a sliding scale, but check for ones that are free, check with the parent center, and resources, there are always resources. So this is my time for Q&A. I feel like we've answered a lot of Q&A, but if we have any additional, we've probably got a few more minutes. Thank you so much to our interpreters. I know we're working overtime or more than we expected, so thank you for sticking it through. Here's my contact information if you need to contact any of us here at the office. If you feel that you can benefit from any of Synergia's services, please contact our intake line. And all of this information, all of our workshops are on Facebook and YouTube. Please feel free to check them out. They're on a number of topics. And I'm usually the presenter, so I hope you're okay with that. But yes, and I will email you these slides. So thank you so much. I'm going to stop sharing. Let's see, what else did I miss? Thank you for your time, dedication, and how well you explained everything. Proud of you for what you offer our community. Thank you so much for saying that, Ms. Arroyo. Mr. Louis, does Synergia go to IEP team meetings with parents? If you do receive education, advocacy, and assistance, we can go with accompany parents to IEP team meetings. So please contact our intake line if that is of interest to you. And thank you, Ms. Phillips. Gracias a usted, señora Sucedo. Thank you, Ms. Martinez. I want to check Facebook before we go anywhere, make sure I'm not missing anybody. Let's see. Okay, perfect. I didn't miss any questions. All right, so thank you. Well, Mr. Louis, it's never too late. So please feel free to reach out. And Ms. Martinez, saludos a mis tejanos. I am from Texas. I'm from Dallas. So that's very heartwarming to see that shout out. I'm going to activate a poll really quick, everyone. So please, if you will, just fill it out. I know it says sex ed and sexuality, but please ignore that. But we would love to hear your feedback. Yes, Mr. Lee, thank you so much for joining and for all of your questions. I appreciate every one of them. And thank you, Doris, my colleague Doris. I didn't realize you were here. Thank you, Ms. Barker. I appreciate that. Really, I do. We always try to make it better. Let me play some music for you guys. Hey, Tatiana. Oh my goodness, my colleagues are here showing up. I